we have with us the Foreign Minister of Norway, and here on this special occasion. Thank you for speaking to us and taking our time. Really appreciate it.
Very happy to be in your program.
Given the kind of environment we're in, the geopolitical environment, the geo-economic environment, how do you see the two countries' relationship moving forward?
So yes, I know India well. I've been here for many times. But the first time I was here, I was a child. It was in 1974, so I was 9 years old, 51 years ago, as you said. And it is a very different country now. So I, in my personal life, have seen the development of modern India and everything that you have achieved as a society, as a country. And given everything that's happening in the world economy and in world politics and in geopolitics, India is becoming an increasingly important country also for us. I mean, we are relatively far away as a North European country, but we recognize the importance of a fast-growing economy, and also that it is important for Western countries like ours to have a broader set of friends, partners, people to work with on several global issues. And there are many areas where Norway and India can work closely together. Our bilateral relations are excellent, but we have agreed to strengthen them. And right now we're in the final stages of ratifying our free trade agreement between EFTA, which is Switzerland, Iceland, Norway and Liechtenstein on the one hand, and India, and that will greatly improve our commercial, trade and economic relations.
Right, and you talk about the trade and economic partnership agreement with India, the EU, EFTA countries, the deal that was inked last year. It had promised investments of $100 billion. From Norway, what particular sectors are we looking at? From what I gather, there's interest in blue economy, as well as maritime tech and renewable energy. Expand on those points as to what can we expect in these particular sectors in the coming years.
So indeed, everything that has to do with the maritime sector, that's shipbuilding, shipping, but also which is much more than actually building ships. It's all the technology that modern shipping is dependent on IT and on modern technological improvements. It is the blue economy, which is how can we harvest more from the seas in a sustainable manner. How can we better manage oceans, and how can we improve maritime security? So there's in many of my meetings and conversations with the Indian government, it tends to circulate about our common interest in developing our maritime partnership. But that's just one. Another sector is green transition in general, green shipping, but also green transition in general, energy investments in energy production, in further development of the grid. India, not so long ago, was the 10th or 11th economy in the world. It's 5th now, and we all think that it will reach 3rd. And in order to do that in a manner that is compatible with our climate goals, it has to be more energy, but also more renewable energy. And this is something we have experience in from Norway, and there is quite a lot of investments going on from Norway in India in this sector.
Right, and the current trade war and reciprocal tariffs, it has upended the global economy to some extent. Where do you see the partnership of India and Norway go ahead from there? And in the future, you also said you had meetings with Minister Goyal as well as your Indian counterparts as well, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. Tell us a bit about that. What came up in the discussions?
Yes, so from the Indian government side, I met with Foreign Secretary Jaishankar, as you said, the Minister of Commerce Goyal, and also with the National Security Advisor Mr. Duval. And in all these conversations, we were expanding on how we can do more together and so on. When it comes to Minister Goyal, we were celebrating the fact that we are right now, actually, the day I was meeting him, which was yesterday, was the same day that the Norwegian Parliament approved of the free trade agreement, which means that on this Friday, the government, the King, will actually sign it. And we see that as a fantastic opportunity for further expanding our trade on these issues that we talked about, but also many others. And our economies are very compatible, which means we're not competing in the same sectors, but we have a lot of compatible interest, which means we buy things from India, you buy things from Norway, and our economy can develop jointly. I was happy with this agreement last year when we agreed to it. I'm even happier now because the world has changed to the worse. As you said, there are now trade wars. There is the Donald Trump presidency, which has gone back to a very old-fashioned style of tariff barriers, which then triggers other countries to counter with other tariff barriers. There's no winners in this. There might be some very short-term benefit from some sectors, but the global economy will take a hit. But what the rest of us need to do, those of us who still believe in trade, and that trade is a good thing, is exactly what we are doing between EFTA and India. And the appetite for these free trade agreements is going up in order to become less dependent on the American economy, and also to develop other partnerships. So I know that EFTA was ahead, but there is also a very deep conversation with the European Union and India on a free trade partnership, for instance. And these things there will be more of this, and that's something we welcome.
Trade between the two countries from 2013 to 2023 has seen an increase of nearly 200% from the reports I read. It's now reached $1.1 billion. Of course, as you pointed out, the various sectors of cooperation we will see, and amid the global uncertainty around the tariff war and the retaliation that we're witnessing, there is also potential when we meet with our other counterparts of the Nordic countries for the Nordic Summit due to take place this year. Tell us a bit about that.
So we very much look forward to receiving Prime Minister Modi in Oslo, in Norway. And as you said, it will be part of that meeting will be a Nordic summit, Nordic India Summit. That means that the prime ministers of Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway, and Iceland will all meet the Prime Minister of India together as a group, because the Nordic community is very closely knit, and I think it's interesting from the Indian side to meet us together, and it's interesting for us also to see not only all bilateral relations, not only Sweden, Norway, or Denmark towards India, but also what we can do together. So that's become a little tradition. It has happened a few times before, and we rotate in which country it happens, and this year it's in Norway, and then there will also be a bilateral part of that meeting. It will be about everything from expanding our economic cooperation, but also discussing many of the key issues of the day. War in Ukraine, war in the Middle East, how do we deal with a more fractured world? What is the Nordic view? What is the Indian view? So it will be a broad set of conversations in the multilateral part. And when it comes to the bilateral part, one thing we very much look forward to is a roundtable with our key CEOs, the bosses of our largest companies, who are very eager to see the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, and to discuss how we can capitalize on this free trade agreement. Because as you said, the trade has doubled. The number of Norwegian companies engaged here has doubled in the same time, but this is before we had the free trade agreement. So that's how much can grow with this agreement. So that's so the agreement is a base, and then we will try to fill it with content.
And as you said, you had visited India during your childhood with your parents. You took a trip to Varanasi and you went to Agra as well. You've had a connect with India long before you became the foreign minister.
Oh,
Tell
yes.
us a bit about your experiences and what you're looking forward to the most now. And what difference do you see from the 1970s when you were here to now in 2025?
Well, I mean, when I was here, the first visits, the first one was in 74. I think I was here 4 years later and 4 years after that. So I became I had many opportunities to meet India. I've always been fascinated by India's, culture and society and history. It's really an amazing place. And one of the things that fascinates me is India and Indians' capacity to live in every era at the same time. You can have something very modern and something very traditional that are coinciding And it seems to be, the broad tolerance of that coexistence of many different things and eras. Of course, when I came here first, it was a socialist planned economy. I remember, for instance, that in India you could have every car you wanted as long as it was ambassador and black. So all the cars were the same. And when we traveled to Varanasi by train, it was a steam engine train, which I otherwise only have seen on Harry Potter movies and so on. And of course, this is very different from the India of today. And the modernization of the economy, but also the change has been quite evident. And I think that as India moves to be one of the really dominant economies, it's also because it has a very vivid, it's a government of course, but also a society that is very, energetic, young. I think one of the advantages India has compared to Europe is youth and optimism. We have more old people and more pessimism, and that doesn't create as much growth as if you have young people and optimism, which I see a lot of in India. And I also think, I agree. I mean, Indian politicians and I seem to agree that much of what's happening in the world is problematic. It's not good. And we would like a more organized world. We would like a stronger United Nations, a stronger multilateral system.
Thank you for speaking to us and taking our time. Really appreciate it, and the busy schedule that you had.